Namaste, I'm Haliwa Kastura, a certified Iyengar yoga teacher, and today we're practicing Padmasana, the lotus pose. So, classically, lotus pose, Padmasana, and all of the other seated postures are taught from a pose called Dandasana. Dandasana, which looks like this. So the backs of my legs are on the floor, my hips are bent, they're in flexion, and I'm taking my hands to the floor and pressing my hands down to lift my back ribs up and away from the floor. So I'll show you what that looks like from the side. See how I'm taking my pelvis and bringing it up, because the lowest part of my spine, my sacrum, and my tailbone underneath fit down into my pelvis. So if my pelvis is sinking, my spine is sinking. And again, see how I press my hands down and lift my inner arms up to raise my chest up. So when you take that pose and take one leg out to the side and then bring the other leg out to the side, it's called Lavista Konasana. Actually, I'm going to move these props over to the side. So this is Lavista Konasana. It's the seated angle pose. It starts in Dandasana, and I keep the weight balanced over the median line of the backs of both legs from the buttock bones to the heels. I don't let the feet turn out as I take my right leg to the right and then my left leg over to the left. Okay, from here, we're going to come to Budokan Asana. See how I bring the outer edge of my right foot to the floor, and then my left foot, and I take my hands, just as I did before, for Dandasana and Lavista Konasana, back behind me, and I use my hands pressing down to lift my pelvis in the back, my spine, and my chest up in the opposite direction. Okay. So Dandasana, Lavista Konasana, and Budokan Asana are the foundation for Padmasana. So we're going to practice starting in almost Lavista Konasana. Do you see it's not as wide, the separation between my legs, as the first Lavista Konasana? Okay, now watch how I turn this thigh out at the top, middle, and the bottom near my knee, and then I don't pick my knee up that way. See how I keep my knee low, and I lift this buttock up, and I bend my knee. That's to keep my groin soft and moving in the direction of my knee. And then once I'm here, I sit back up again. Okay, so see how I'm going to lean over until my outer knee comes to the floor, and I can pick my foot up and then move my knee, my right knee towards my left knee, and place the outer edge of my right foot on the root of my left thigh. And then from here, I'm going to tuck my left foot underneath my right knee and sit in Ardha, or half Padmasana. Okay, so if the knee is way up, you're going to come back to Budokan Asana and work on opening that groin, inner groin, and that head. Okay? But if you are able to achieve half Padmasana, and you take that foot out from under the knee and the knee comes down, when I reach over to pick up my foot, if my foot feels like it's mobile, right? Like if I pull on it, it will come towards the root of the other thigh. Then I attempt full Padmasana. Now remember, the body is always different from, or most of the time, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time different from one side to the other. So when you work with the other side, don't expect the same behavior from this side as you got from this side. It's like I always say to my mother, remember, I'm not my sister. Okay. So see how I lean over so that as I bend the knee, the groin stays soft and the knee stays low. And see how I continue to look at my knees, and as I take my knees into Padmasana, and I'm keeping my eye on my feet as I work with this posture, so that I'm absolutely seated in my embodiment. Okay, now one thing I want you to notice is that as I take the legs out, I'm reaching for the ankles and pressing the ankles into my hands to extend my knees. Okay. Common mistake to avoid that I see regularly in class, whether coming in this way or this way, regardless as to how the students are coming in, is that at times the students you'll see this happen, right? So if your knee is up, ask yourself, am I one of the people who are taking my foot too far across my leg, my opposite leg? And then take that knee out, try taking that knee out to the side and turning the ankle, foot, and shin. And even if the toes are on the inner thigh, the top of the toes, rather than the outer foot at the root of the thigh, this is a pose the Iyengars call Kamalasana, and it's a wider, a looser Padmasana. But don't stay as long as in this pose because it can, over time, weaken the ankles. Okay? So, that's one new and exciting way to come into Padmasana. And the other way is, and I'm going to open up a blanket so that I don't get stuck to my brand new sticky mat, is to come to a pose called Viparita Karani. So see how I come to half halasana, and then bend my knees, and now look how close my sacrum is to the wall. So I don't want to push myself too hard towards the wall, and then when before I straighten my legs, I slide down. So my sacrum comes to the bolster, and then I stretch my legs. Now, just like you did before, when you were on the floor, you're going to come to Lavista Konasana, turn the leg out, and make sure that you're turning the thigh all the way from the upper thigh to the lower thigh before you bend that knee. And then see how I turn that knee, hip, knee, ankle, foot circularly to take the foot, the outer foot onto the root of the thigh. And then you'll do the same thing with this side. See if you can come to half Padmasana, full Padmasana. Coming out of the pose mindfully and with gratitude for your precious knees. So working skillfully and with equanimity, just like Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Yoga is skill in action, and yoga is equanimity of mind. And then from here, see how I take my foot to the wall? And I practice coming into half Padmasana, lying down, and bringing the legs to the bolster as a preparation for a pose that we're going to do in the next video called, you could also try full Padmasana this way, called Matsyasana. So do you see how the backs of my thighs near my buttocks are what's landing on the bolster? And you see this space opening here between my frontal hip bones and my thighs. Okay, now watch how I scoot back and And I repeat again. Once my feet are on the bolster, and if half Padmasana is what's coming for you today, you can keep a hold of your foot with your hand and bring your knees to the bolster. But see how I don't put a large arch in my lower back when I do that. If that had to happen, I would just go closer to the bolster. And again, you can either come to half or full Padmasana, and see how I move the buttock flesh away from my lower back, and I keep my buttock bones from sinking to the floor. I lift them up slightly as I take my knees down onto the bolster. And then, if that came well, either in full or half Padmasana, you can repeat coming down to the floor. So see how I take my hands and I move my inner heel, the skin on my inner ankles towards my inner heels and my inner heels towards my navel. And then I maintain the inner heels moving this way as I bring my knees down, down, down. Okay, to come up, I can bring my knees into my chest, press my hands down into the floor, and come to Padmasana. So I hope that either the Lavista Konasana way or the Viparita Karani way helped you come into half or full Padmasana with ease, in a way that you hadn't before. You learned something new, and then also maybe you were able to taste Matsyasana by working your way